Chapter 1871, Blaming Me? Chu Chenxi was fuming, but she could not possibly leave. Even though Sister Zhao had said that, Chu Chenxi could not believe her words. Apart from her, Zai Sheng would never want to marry anyone else. Her father-in-law, Zai Yaowai, had treated her rather well in the past. She did not believe that the Zai family would be so unfeeling to her and would say whatever the caretaker had just told her. All these had to be done by that woman who had set her sights on marrying Zai Sheng. If she were to leave because of her anger now, she would have fallen for that woman's trap and would have allowed that woman to take advantage of her. Would Chu Chenxi do such a foolish thing? Thankfully, the hotels in Qingshui town had already opened now that it was spring. After looking through several hotels, Chu Chenxi finally found one that she thought she would be able to spend the night in. Then, she made a call to her mom. "Mom, I'm in Qingshui town. Are you in the Zai family's house?" What Qi Minlin really wanted to know was where her daughter was. Her daughter's current location would determine whether she still had any chance of getting back together with Zai Sheng. Chu Chenxi did not lie. "No, I'm in a hotel." As expected, even though she was Chu Chenxi's biological mother, she felt that her daughter had gone overboard and could not be forgiven this time. Even she, her mother, thought so, much less Zai Yaowai and Miao Jing, who were Zai Sheng's parents. They would never be able to forgive her daughter for betraying Zai Sheng. "Mom, it's too early to say such things. It's not my fault that I didn't manage to enter the Zai family's house this time. It was not the Zai family's fault either. It was because of another woman. She was the Zai family's only daughter-in-law. Even if she had done something wrong and had let Zai Sheng down in the past, she had all reasons to believe that the Zai family would not go so far as to refuse to meet her for Zai Sheng's sake." "What do you mean? Why is there suddenly another woman in the picture? Are you talking about Miao Jing?" The only woman who hated Chenxi in the entire Zai family was Miao Jing. At the mention of this, Chu Chenxi flared up. "It's not that stupid old woman, but I bet it has something to do with that stupid old woman. Haven't they always wanted Zai Sheng to get remarried to another woman? I guess the Zai family must have found a partner for Zai Sheng behind my back. That woman is rather impressive. She managed to bribe the caretaker of the Zai family's old villa, and that was why the caretaker refused to let me in to see the Zai family." Initially, Qi Minlin was infuriated as well. How could there be such a bold and daring caretaker who cared more for an outsider than someone on her own side? But very soon, she calmed down. "This is the Zai family we're talking about. The Zai family will never make such a low-level mistake and be taken for a ride by a caretaker. Are you sure that those words were those of Zai Sheng's partner and not the Zai family?" She did not think it was strange for Zai Yaowai or Miao Jing to have said such a thing. If she had a son and if her daughter-in-law were to have an affair behind her son's back, she would much rather her son remain single for the rest of his life after his divorce than allow her son to meet with that shameless ex-daughter-in-law ever again. "Chenxi, I'm not trying to be nasty. But I hope that you'll calm down and think it through. It's very hard for the Zai family to forgive you for what you've done. I don't know if that woman you've talked about really exists, but what I do know is that the Zai family may very well take it as though you've never existed and has instructed the caretaker not to open the door for you." Having excessive self-confidence was not good either. "Mom, do you mean that even my father-in-law is still angry at me and refuses to see me? And that they don't want me to have anything to do with Zai Sheng?" Chu Chenxi's face darkened. This was the last situation that she wanted to face. If not a single person in the Zai family had a good opinion of her and was willing to stand on her side, it would be an uphill battle to reconcile with Zai Sheng and to have a future with him. "Chenxi, this is more than just being angry. You have to think about your health. The Zai family cares very much about continuing their family line. If you had not made that mistake while Zai Sheng had been in the military, the Zai family would have tolerated you no matter how much they liked children, even though you can't give birth to children. They would never have taken issue with your trouble with fertility. The problem is that you did, in fact, commit a mistake, and moreover, you can't give birth to children. In that case, why would the Zai family still want you as their daughter-in-law and give up the chance of having a grandchild? If Chenexai wanted the Zai family to accept her for who she was, she had to have some advantages. This had already reached a dead end. There was no way of salvaging the situation. If there was the slightest chance of salvaging the situation, she would never have splashed cold water on her daughter or upset her daughter. Besides, Qi Minlin was already too ashamed by this matter. Was it due to genetics that her daughter was unable to give birth to children? No. The daughter she had given birth to had been just like any other woman, with the ability to conceive and be a mother. But her daughter had not cherished herself after her divorce. Not only had she partied and gotten into dozens of relationships with men with shady backgrounds, but she had never taken any precautions either. As such, she had gotten pregnant several times and had undergone abortions each time. It was because of what her daughter had done to her own body that she had gotten infertility problems. She wondered if the Zai family would pursue the matter and find out why her daughter had suddenly become infertile. Previously, her daughter had undergone a premarital checkup before getting married to Zai Sheng. The report from that checkup had not said that her daughter was infertile. After all these years, her daughter had suddenly become infertile. Added on with the fact that she had led such a messy life all these years, no family would want a daughter-in-law like that, even if she had not let Zai Sheng down at that time. Qi Minlin was Chu Chenexai's biological mother, but even she felt that a typical family would never want her daughter as their family's daughter-in-law, much less the Zai family. Infertility had become Chu Chenexai's Achilles heel. She was already over 40, almost turning 50. Other children were about to enter university, yet she would never have the chance to have a child of her own who shared blood ties with her. What a cruel reality this was! Chu Chenexai's face paled. And her fingers gripping on the phone turned even paler. Can you blame me for that? If we're going to talk about it, it's actually Zai Sheng's fault. We'd been married for 3 years, but in those 3 years, Zai Sheng had always been in the army and had never touched me even once. It was because he made me so lonely that I eventually got into an affair. It was his choice that I got into an affair. It's his fault. The Zai family shouldn't have pushed all the blame to me. Neither should they have made me divorce Zai Sheng. Chapter 1872, Be careful. If Zai Sheng had not gotten a divorce from her and had instead given her a chance to live like a normal couple, she would never have gotten into such a lifestyle and thrown her health away after such a loss. It was only because Zai Sheng had divorced her that she had abandoned herself and allowed herself to fall into such dire straits. Zai Sheng had to take up 70% of that responsibility. So was she wrong to demand that Zai Sheng reconcile with her and take responsibility of her for the rest of her life? She had done nothing wrong. This was just what Zai Sheng should have done in the first place. Qi Minlin was rendered speechless. No matter how terrible she was, this was still her own daughter, after all. Qi Minlin felt pangs of pain in her chest. She could not say any nasty things to her daughter since she had been the one who had raised her daughter in this manner. As such, scolding her daughter would be akin to scolding herself. Yet, if she did not scold her daughter, Qi Minlin knew that Chu Chenexai's mindset would remain wrong. It was horribly wrong. Not only would Chu Chenexai never be able to get back together with Zai Sheng, but she would even have to worry about whether her daughter, who should have become a grandma in a few years' time, would live well up until her death. She worried that her daughter's life would only get more miserable as she aged. Qi Minlin, who was in a huge dilemma, had no choice but to press the button to end the call. Hello, Mom? Mom? The dial tone beeped. Chu Chenexai thought that the call had ended because the signal in Qingshui town was not good. But when she tried to make another call, the person in question directly declined her call. When she returned from her trance, she finally realized that her mom had hung up on her. This had nothing to do with the signal. Everyone is trying to come against me one by one. Will they only be happy when they see that I'm leading a miserable life? Chu Chenxi threw her phone onto her bed. Even her biological mother was acting in this manner. In an instant, Chu Chenxi lost much of her previous confidence of being able to remarry Zai Sheng. If Qi Minlan had been in front of Chu Chenxi would definitely have asked her mom, "Am I your daughter, or is Zai Sheng your son? If even you don't stand on my side at this point in time, how am I going to persevere?" Of course, Qi Minlan was not in front of Chu Chenxi. In fact, she had even refused to pick up Chu Chenxi's phone call. As such, Qi Minlan had very cleverly dodged this question. The enraged Chu Chenxi was obviously not going to let these small setbacks and the discouragement of outsiders get her down. She was not going to give up her dream of a bright and glorious future just like that. That was all right. It did not matter if everyone thought badly of her plan. The only opinion that mattered was her own. Faith could move mountains. Had she not successfully gotten married to Zai Sheng at that time because of this faith? If she could succeed once, there would naturally be a second time. The difference was that she had had absolute confidence that begging for the Zai family's mercy and forgiveness would be more than enough before she had arrived here. The problem was that the Zai family's caretaker had said some disconcerting things. If there truly was a woman by Zai Sheng's side, this woman was greatly disadvantageous to her. Even if this woman had 100, or even 1,000, flaws compared to her, there was one thing that Chu Chenxi could never match up to. That woman had never betrayed Zai Sheng. That was Chu Chenxi's Achilles heel. Moreover, given the Zai family's background, it was not at all difficult for Zai Sheng to find a woman who was better than her in more than just one way. If Zai Sheng did not even discriminate against a woman like that, what should she do to win Zai Sheng back? After contemplating it for a long time, Chu Chenxi finally decided that the first thing she had to do was to find that woman. She had to soften her attitude toward the Zai family. They would never give in to her just because of her headstrong attitude. But she could do that to this woman. She had to let that woman know that she was the third party, who had ruined her blissful marriage with Zai Sheng. She had to make that woman take the initiative to leave Zai Sheng. As long as this woman left and was unwilling to marry Zai Sheng, the Zai family would have no other choice but to reconsider her. It was just that it would not be easy making that woman leave Zai Sheng. No fool would give up a man like Zai Sheng, who had such a good background. Chu Chenxi, who had had her fun outside, realized one advantage of Zai Sheng. Compared to other men, Zai Sheng would never betray her or do anything to put their marriage in danger. He would never get into a complicated relationship with other women, causing her to be called an old hag by that third party either. Because she had seen arrogant mistresses bullying the legal wives to tears, Chu Chenxi had never agreed to marry any of those men whom she had slept with, even if they were willing to do so. All along, Chu Chenxi had always been passionate in bed but did not care about them once she changed into her clothes. In fact, she was even more decisive than men in this aspect. With those men as comparisons, Chu Chenxi finally understood that Zai Sheng might have spent very little time at home with her, but Zai Sheng was, in fact, the most reliable one, who would never cause a scene for his wife. Chu Chenxi had once been the one to cause a scene for a man's wife, but Chu Chenxi would never wish for a day when her husband would bring home a younger and more beautiful woman to provoke her and call her old and ugly. Upon calming down, the first thing Chu Chenxi did was to move to a different hotel, one that was nearer to the Zai family's old villa, from which she would be able to spy on the Zai family's old villa with a telescope. She believed that she would definitely be able to catch that vixen by keeping a close eye on the Zai family's old villa. Zai Yaowai and Miaojing had been downright disgusted by Chu Chenxi chasing Zai Sheng all the way to Qingshui town, even declaring to Sister Zhao that she was the family's mistress. Is there anything wrong? Zai Sheng was surprised that Zai Yaowai had come to find him. Do you want to go back already? Zai Sheng did not make clear whether he was asking about returning to Pingcheng or the capital, but Zai Sheng thought that it was more likely for the elderly couple to return to Pingcheng since they had got along well with Jiajia over the new year. He could tell that Jiajia was more like the Zai family than the Wei family and had a good temper. She was quite a good niece indeed. You can't wait for us to leave. Zai Yaya eyed Zai Sheng from the corners of his eye. But I'm not here with good news. Chu Chenxi is in Qingshui town. I'm sure you know quite a lot about her situation. She still hasn't given up. Qiaonan is quite a decent lady, though she lacks a temper. Given Chu Chenxi's way of doing things, be careful that Qiaonan might just get frightened and bullied away by Chu Chenxi if you don't keep an eye on her. Chapter 1873, Why don't you hold on tight? Chu Chenxi was definitely capable of doing such a thing. Did Zai Sheng really intend to spend the rest of his life as a bachelor if Chu Chenxi were to chase Qiaonan away? If it really got to that stage, Zai Yaya felt that both he and Miaojing could finally give up. That was how their son, Zai Sheng, was going to spend the rest of his life. Zai Yaya had not had many interactions with Qiaonan, but compared to Chu Chenxi, Qiaonan was definitely meeker and less aggressive. Chu Chenxi was different. She was someone who had cheated on her husband, lived such a wild lifestyle that she could no longer bear children, and was even someone who was ill. Even then, she still had the guts to ask for reconciliation with her ex-husband. Even a fool could tell that Chu Chenxi harbored no good intentions. Upon hearing Chu Chenxi's name, Zai Sheng's reaction changed slightly. Even though his reaction was not out of concern, Zai Sheng felt the same way and thought that Qiaonan would be no match for Chu Chenxi. She still dares to come here. Knowing that Chu Chenxi had come to find him, Zai Sheng was utterly frustrated with that woman, who was once his wife. There are some things that I feel should be done. You won't mind, right? Zai Sheng had been unhappy with the Chu family for a long time, whether it was then or now. Zai Sheng was all too clear about why the Chu family was not preventing Chu Chenxi from harassing him and not giving up on him. The Chu family had always thought that being in-laws with the Zai family was a glorious thing, and having him as a son-in-law was something to be proud of. He did not mind giving the Chu family a gentle reminder that it was not always such a wonderful thing to have a relationship with Zai Sheng. Do what is necessary. This time, there was no way Zai Yaya would stand in the way. If he were to do that, his daughter-in-law would escape very soon, and there would be no hope of him ever getting a grandson. Compared to his own family, the relationship he had had when he was young meant nothing. Besides, his past relationship with Qi Minlin had long ago turned into a bitter memory. Because of Zai Yaya's words, Zai Sheng glanced at his father in surprise. Are you serious? The person I'm targeting is Chu Qin. He's not just Chu Chenxi's father but also Qi Minlin's husband. Once Chu Qin's luck is bad, Qi Minlin won't have a good time either. Every single member of the Zai family was aware of his father's special care and attention toward Qi Minlin. Zai Yaya's face darkened. Do you think I have Alzheimer's disease? Of course I still remember all that. And don't you dare talk about this in front of your mom. Are you trying to ruin my relationship with your mom by bringing up all these things of the past? Meow Meow was like a huge vinegar barrel. In the past, she almost exploded upon hearing Qi Minlin's name. Even now, he tried his best not to bring up anything regarding Qi Minlin or the Chu family in front of Meow Meow because they had not yet brought a daughter-in-law into the family nor had a grandchild yet. Ruining the relationship between you and mom? Do I really need to do that? Zai Sheng spat out disdainfully. Wasn't your relationship with my mom already on the rocks some years ago? Forget it. You've finally repented, and it'll be good as long as you stay by my mom's side and stop caring about any other women apart from my mom. He had protected an outsider more so than his own wife. Zai Sheng disagreed with the way Zai Yaya had acted in his youth. When he was younger, Zai Sheng had refused to get married. Firstly, it was true that he had not met anyone who had managed to convince him to get married. Secondly, he felt that there was no point in getting married after witnessing Zai Yaya and Miaojing's married life. There would be fewer opportunities to hurt each other without marriage in the picture. Zai Yai was speechless. Of course, it was not that he had nothing to rebut his son with. He was simply too infuriated to speak. He had finally repented? Was it right to use such a term on him? No way. In the end, Zai Yai decided not to argue with this old bachelor. No matter what, he still had Miao Miao by his side, while Zai Sheng had yet to successfully court Jiao Nan. The two of them had not gotten official, and now, Qiu Chenxi had come into the picture too. Qiu Chenxi's appearance only meant that it would be much harder for Zai Sheng to get together with Jiao Nan. I know very well about my relationship with your mom. I think you'd better spend more effort thinking about your own problems. Do you really intend to only marry Jiao Nan once your mom and I are gone? Your mom and I don't care about anything and don't have any requirements either. Can't you just work a little faster? There was something else that Zai Yai had not said. This was something that Miao Jing had said. The gist of it was that Jiao Nan was already 40 this year. She might be a little older, but as long as they grasped the chance, there was still a chance of having children. As long as Jiao Nan gave birth to Zai Sheng's children, Miao Jing could die the next day with no regrets at all. At least, she would be able to answer to old Master Zai and her mother-in-law. It was the new year. Zai Yai thought that it was bad luck to say such things and thus made no mention of that to Zai Sheng. Zai Yai's mindset was just as traditional as Zai Sheng's in some areas. It would not be too much to ask for grandchildren if his son were to get married to Jiao Nan, right? Marriage did not mean having children, but having children was something that all elderly looked forward to. It was as simple as that. Zai Yai had not said it explicitly, but Zai Sheng understood exactly what he meant. Whether we have children will depend on Jiao Nan. If she wants to, then we'll have children. It's fine even if we don't have children in the end. I think you can tell that I don't really care about whether I have children or not. Zai Sheng's words did not push the responsibility of having children to Jiao Nan, and he made it clear that he would be the one to be blamed if they did not have children. If he really wanted to have children, he would definitely convince Jiao Nan. If Jiao Nan did not have children because he did not want to, she was doing nothing more than complying with his wishes. Humph! You haven't even married her, but you're already protecting her. Zai Sheng's words seemed to imply that he was willing to cast his parents aside for the sake of his wife. Do you really like her that much? He understood his son well. From how Zai Sheng was thinking about Jiao Nan's well-being in everything he said, it was clear that Zai Sheng truly cared about Jiao Nan. What's good about her? Was she really that good she could move his icy cold son? He appeared the same as before on the outside, but in fact, Zai Sheng's feelings for Jiao Nan were as deep as the ocean. I don't know. Zai Sheng gave it a thought and answered truthfully. Perhaps, I should say that I think that she's good in every way. More importantly, she's the best in every aspect in my eyes. Zai Yai was overcome with emotions. That emotionless son of his had truly fallen in love with that lady named Jiao Nan. Since you already have such feelings for her, why don't you do something and marry her quickly? It's not for me or your mom. It's for yourself. Don't you want her to be the first person you see every morning when you wake up? Chapter 1874, Jia is with me. To put it bluntly, the person whom you think is so good may not be that good in other people's eyes. I heard Xiao Su say that Jiao Nan came over for help during the new year because she got into some trouble with another man. He had to place a little pressure on Zai Sheng. He did not believe that Zai Sheng would allow another man to snatch Jiao Nan away now that he was so infatuated with her. I know what I'm doing. No matter what Zai Yai or Miao Jing said, Zai Sheng had only one answer, that he knew what he was doing. Zai Yai sighed. Did he really know what he was doing? If so, why couldn't he give a clearer and more explicit answer? Had he not realized that Miao Miao had lost weight recently from worrying about this matter all day and night and could not sleep well? How wishy-washy! You might say that now, but if there really comes a day when you don't have anyone to cry to, you can find your mom and me. We won't laugh at you. If it doesn't work out, the three of us can still live happily while your mom and I are still alive. Zai Yaowai did not think highly of Zai Sheng's dawdling. A good woman would never lack good men chasing her. Whoever acted quickly would get her, and whoever acted slowly would lose out. Zai Yaowai was frustrated by Zai Sheng's speed, but it was not that Zai Sheng himself did not realize that. Unfortunately, every time he was on the verge of doing something, an accident would always occur. Before Zai Sheng could say anything to Jiao Nan, an explosive piece of news spread from Pingcheng to the Zai family's old villa. Because of that, the whole family, including Xiao Su, dropped everything and rushed down to Pingcheng to find Zai Hua. However, the Zai family did not meet Zai Hua at her home but at the police station. Zai Hua was sullen and sat in a daze, her hair tousled untidily and her clothes spattered with tiny red dots. With just one glance, Zai Sheng was sure that those spots on Zai Hua's clothes were from human blood. What's going on? Miao Jing had been in a panic upon hearing the news from Pingcheng. All had been well, so why had Hua suddenly attempted to kill Weida and his sister? The matter was so serious that she had even been brought to the police station. Why had Hua been so impulsive? One was her husband, while the other was her sister-in-law. Why would she want to get back at both of them at the same time? Zai Sheng instructed Zai Yaowai to stay with Miao Jing, who refused to leave Zai Hua's side. Then, he found the person in charge to understand the situation. Knowing the Zai family's background, the other party was very honest, yet helpless. "Chief, I'm sorry for being inept. The truth is that up until now, she hasn't said a thing about why she hit them. The victims have already been sent to the hospital, and we've just been informed that the victims were discovered in time, so their lives are not in any danger, though their injuries are quite severe. We'll have to settle this well. Otherwise, the chief's sister might very well be jailed for 2 to 3 years. All right. Thank you." Zai Sheng's expression darkened. "Can you give us a room? Perhaps, we can try asking her about the things you haven't been able to get out of her. That would be cooperating with you too." Of course. The chief's sister refused to utter a single word, and they would not be able to get anything out of those 2 victims in the hospital for now. It did not seem right for the situation to be at a standstill either. If the chief could get his sister to answer them, that would be good. They had to handle this situation well. Otherwise, he would really have to worry if his position was safe. Once the family of 4 was finally left alone in a room, Zai Sheng got a response from Zai Hua with only one sentence. "Did you ever think about Jiajia when you did that? Where's Jiajia now?" Her biological mother had almost killed her biological father. Her father had then been sent to the hospital, while her mother had been sent to the police station. Zai Sheng could not count on the Wei family treating Jiajia as their granddaughter and taking care of her after this incident. Up until now, Zai Sheng had not seen Jiajia. There was a sudden glimmer of light in Zai Hua's dull eyes. Jiajia. That was right. Where was her daughter? Could she be at the Wei family's house? Zai Sheng, if you still treat me as your elder sister, can you help me check if Jiajia is at home? Jiajia must have been scared stiff by what happened today. You're finally thinking of Jiajia. Zai Sheng sighed. Don't worry. I've already instructed Xiao Su to find Jiajia, and he's gone to your house to check on her. I don't think Jiajia would have gone to the Wei family's house. That's not a good place for her. Besides, the whole Wei family must be at the hospital watching over Weida and his sister. There's no way Jiajia would be at their house. At the mention of Wei Xiaomei, Zai Hua could not help but clench her fists that were on the table. So much so that the veins on the back of her hand were popping out. Hua, can you tell me what happened? You're scaring not just Jiajia. You're scaring me too. What happened? Why did you beat Weida so harshly? Had Hua not been the one who had insisted on marrying Weida? Zai Hua lowered her head, refusing to speak or give any explanation. All she wanted to know was where her daughter, Jiajia, was and whether she was all right. She was worried that Jiajia would be affected by today's incident. Since Zihua kept mum, the atmosphere in the room was stiff once again and they were making no progress. Ziyai was consumed with anger. You've already done it, but you're refusing to tell us the reason why, so what was the point of that? You're really crossing the line. Do you know that you're driving your mom and me to our deaths? Are you getting back at your mom and me for favoring your brother over you when you were younger? Didn't you say that Wada would treat you well and that he would give you all the love that we didn't give you? So why did you try to kill such a good man? Zihua remained silent, but her head sank even lower. The conversation was now at an impasse. At this moment, Zai Sheng's phone suddenly rang, breaking the cold silence. Hello, Jiaonan. Zai Sheng was surprised that Jiaonan had taken the initiative to call him. Other than that time when Jiaonan had run into trouble with Chen Jun, this was Jiaonan's second time calling him. Jiajia is with me. Looking at the pale young lady who was shivering even while wrapped up in her thick coat and was in a trance, Jiaonan spoke in a low voice. Jiajia is at my house now. She's fine. I'll take care of her. Don't worry. Tell Sister Zihua not to worry either. Chapter 1875, Adding Fuel to the Fire. And please tell Sister Zihua that there's no problem that cannot be solved in this world. It's not worth it to sacrifice her own life for a scumbag like this. Sister Zihua has to remember that she isn't alone. She doesn't have the right to be willful because she's a mother now. She has to deal with this rationally and calmly for Jiajia's sake. You know what's going on? Zai Sheng could tell that she knew something. Did Jiajia tell you about it? Something like that. Brother Zai, you have to look after Sister Zihua and have a good talk with her to discuss how she intends to deal with Wei Dai. Even though Sister Zihua was the one who hit him, we can't afford to let it slide. Jiaonan had never expected Zihua to find out the truth in this manner. The most tragic part was that she had found out about it alongside her daughter, Jiajia. How bold of Wei Dai! Ask Jiaonan to come. Ask Jiaonan to come to Pingcheng. I want to see Jiaonan. Upon hearing that Jiaonan had called, Zihua, who had refused to say anything, suddenly reacted strongly, screaming for Jiaonan to come to Pingcheng to see her. That vicious appearance almost made Miao Jing misunderstand that the next person Zihua wanted to deal with after Weida and Wei Xiaomei was Jiaonan. There was no need for Zai Sheng to relay Zihua's request to Jiaonan. She had clearly heard Zihua's voice. Tell Sister Zihua that I will head down to Pingcheng. I've already purchased my bus ticket, and I'll bring Jiajia along with me. If you don't mind, you can let Jiajia stay with me for the time being. You guys have too much on your plate. And it's inconvenient for Jiajia to return to the Wei family. If you're willing, then it's fine. Sorry for troubling you with Jiajia. Zai Sheng agreed to hand his niece over to Jiaonan. There was nothing he needed to worry about. After hanging up the call, Zai Sheng finally looked at Zihua. Jiaonan will bring Jiajia here. Now, can you talk to us and tell us what happened? I'm tired. I need some rest. I want to have some time alone to rest. Zihua refused to cooperate, especially after hearing what Ziyai had said earlier. She had no intention of telling her family what had gone down today. What's with Jiajia? Jiajia had gone to find Jiaonan. The thought of this situation caused Zihua's gaze to turn cold and full of sarcasm. The Wei family was really something. Without her, would the Wei family be living such comfortable lives? But in the end, how had the Wei family treated her and Jiajia? In the past, she must really have been blind to believe that everyone would be alright as long as she took a step back and gave in. It was only now that she realized that she could never give in to the Wei family because the Wei family would never be grateful to her. In fact, they were ingrates who were no different from that venomous snake that the farmer had kindly rescued. Upon encountering such a situation, Jiajia had chosen to find Jiaonan, whom she had only known for a few days, than to stay in Pingcheng and look for her paternal grandmother's family. Jiajia's reaction caused Zihua to lose all hope in the Wei family. From now on, she would sever all ties with the Wei family. They were enemies from this day on. The Zai family could not do anything about Zihua and could only do as she said. More importantly, Miao Jing felt sorry for her daughter and felt that Zihua must have been hurt very badly. Otherwise, her daughter would never have done such an extreme thing. Her granddaughter had been so frightened that she had taken the bus all the way to Qingshui town alone. The moment Miao Jing acceded to Zihua's request, Zai Yaowai and Zai Sheng had no choice but to follow suit. Zai Yaowai stuffed a cup of warm tea into Miao Jing's cold hands. "All right. Don't worry." "How can I possibly not worry?" Miao Jing burst out in tears. "I feel like my heart's going to jump out of my chest now that something like this is happening to Hua Hua. We've questioned her so many times, but she still refuses to tell us what's going on. I'm afraid that Hua Hua might just destroy herself if this goes on any longer." Zai Yaowai did not say anything. The way he saw it, his daughter, Zai Hua, had already ruined her life the moment she had decided to get together with Wei Dai. The facts proved that his daughter had indeed been completely ruined by Wei Dai. In the past, he had never imagined that his daughter would live the life of a good wife and mother like other women once she got married. It was just that they could not get a good grasp of the situation since Zihua refused to utter a word. Zai Yaowai was unwilling to say any more disheartening words at such a time to make Miao Jing even sadder than she already was. Thus, he decided to remain silent. Qiaonan took about 3 hours to get to Pingcheng with Jiajia. Along the way, Jiajia followed closely beside Qiaonan, her silent expression similar to Zihua's. The moment Qiaonan entered the police station, she immediately inquired about Zihua. "How's Sister Zihua?" Although Jiajia had not said it, her gaze expressed concern, just like Qiaonan. She was very concerned about her mother's situation. After the incident happened, Jiajia had chosen to go to Qingshui town because her grandmother's family was in Qingshui town. She knew that the only people she could get help from were her maternal grandparents' family. At that time, Jiajia had been so frightened that she had completely forgotten that she could have simply made a phone call. When Jiajia arrived in Qingshui town, she found out from Sister Zhao that the entire Zai family had left in a hurry because of a phone call. Upon finding out that her grandmother's family was not around, Jiajia was frightened to tears. In the end, Sister Zhao told her that she could find Qiaonan for the time being. Without giving it much thought, Jiajia agreed to Sister Zhao's suggestion. Thankfully, Sister Zhao knew where Qiaonan lived. Otherwise, Jiajia would really have been unable to do anything alone. "Qiaonan, you're here." Miao Jing could not say anything to Zai Yaowai or Zai Sheng. She knew that the father and son pair might not understand how she felt even if she were to tell them about it. Now that Qiaonan had arrived, Miao Jing felt as though she had gained an ally. "Qiaonan, what should we do? Hua Hua refuses to tell us what's going on and why she hit them. What can't be solved by talking things through? Why did she have to resort to violence? I heard that Wei Da and his sister were beaten to a pulp. Good, they deserved it. It's good that Sister Zihua even spared their lives." Qiaonan deliberately raised her voice. The moment she arrived, she realized that Miao Jing's gaze was constantly on that tightly shut door. Qiaonan guessed that the person in the room had to be Zihua. Miao Jing was dumbfounded. She could not understand why Qiaonan would say that at such a time. It was akin to adding fuel to the fire. Was she trying to say that Zihua should have killed Wei Dai? The Zai family had never abused their power so freely. Chapter 1876, No Wonder. Zai Sheng eyed Qiaonan, and upon confirming that Qiaonan had a plan, he nodded at Miao Jing, asking her to remain silent. Qiaonan breathed a silent sigh of relief that the Zai family had not ruined her plans. "Auntie Miao, where's Sister Zihua? I want to meet her. Jiajia misses her." I guess she would want to see Jia too, right? I'm here. Zihua finally spoke up, but the person who had opened the door was, of course, not Zihua but a police officer. Even though the person in question was Zihua, the police officers did not dare to mess around. In the end, the door was opened, and only Qiaonan and Jia were allowed in. The moment Jia saw Zihua, she ran into Zihua's arms. Mom, nothing can happen to you. I have only you. If anything happens to you, I'll become an orphan. She did not wish to lose both her father and mother. Because Jia started crying, Zihua could not help but cry too. Even though she did not make any noise, her tears flowed down freely from her eyes. Jia. Seeing the mother and daughter hugging each other and sobbing, Qiaonan did not interrupt and only stood silently by the side. When the duo had finally composed themselves and let out all their emotions, Qiaonan finally spoke up. Sister Zihua, I'm sure you heard whatever Jia just said. I believe that you won't behave like Weida and hurt Jia, right? On the way here, I already asked Jia, and she said that she'll follow you after you split from Weida. Since things had gotten to this stage, divorce was certain. Divorce? Zihua understood her words. If I'm willing to get a divorce, won't I be letting this **RD pair go easy? Up until now, Zihua, whose eyes were still red, was still unable to erase the scene that she had witnessed from her mind. She had been the one who purchased the Wei family's house. And Weida dared to sleep with that woman, Wei Xiaomei, in a house that she purchased. Did he think that she was dead? Yes, after hearing Qiaonan's words and suggestion, she had not even gotten the chance to test Weida's, Wei Xiaomei's and Wei Wei's DNA before she had caught Weida red-handed in the act with Wei Xiaomei. Not only that, this whole scene had unfolded in front of Jia's eyes. Even though Zihua had immediately covered Jia's eyes and pushed Jia out of the door, Jia, who was already in junior high school, was clear of what had just happened. Her dad was sleeping with her aunt. It was only today that Jia finally realized that Wei Xiaomei was not her biological aunt but a child that her grandmother had adopted. Even so, Jia had believed that Wei Xiaomei's relationship with Weida was no different from any other siblings. So how could they be sleeping together behind her mother's back? Her father was even a soldier. If she had not witnessed such a scene for herself, Zihua would never have been so enraged to beat Wei Xiaomei and Weida up so badly that they had to be sent to the hospital. If the elderly Wei couple had not returned with Wei Wei and heard them screaming for help, Weida and Wei Xiaomei might not have escaped with only these injuries. Their lives might very well have been in danger. At this point in time, there was no need to test their DNAs anymore, and neither did she have to hesitate about it any longer. The facts were right before her eyes. Qiaonan's suspicions were true. It was the truth. Weida was indeed in a secret relationship with Wei Xiaomei behind her back. Wei Wei was Wei Xiaomei's child, and as such, it was not surprising that he shared such a close relationship with Wei Wei. Zihua sneered. I dated him for several years, and we've been married for over 10 years. I can't believe that an outsider is clearer about the kind of person he is than me. Don't you think it's funny? You're right. Someone as selfish as Weida would never have treated Wei Wei better than Jia even if he favored boys over girls if Wei Wei was not his own son. The most ridiculous part was that she had been coaxed so well by Weida before Jia had been born, and even after Jia had been born, that she had almost treated Wei Wei as her own biological son. Just thinking about this made Zihua want to kill Weida. She could not understand how there could be people like that in the world. Weida had made her support his son whom he had had with another woman. How dare he? Jia felt like she had just been struck by lightning. Hearing Zihua's words made her so shocked that she could not even call her mom. Upon seeing Jia in a daze, Qiaonan quickly wrapped Jia up in her embrace, stroking Jia's head. Jia, listen to me. Don't punish yourself because of what someone else did. All these things are between the adults. It has nothing to do with you. But because it involves your father and mother, you have a right to know about this and make a choice for yourself. Some errors can never be corrected, and at times, your filial piety and perseverance will do no good. Because Wada was such a bast *rd, it was not worth letting Gigia sacrifice herself to lead the life that Wada wanted. Gigia's face paled and her lips trembled. Her voice quavered. Auntie Chiao, my mom said that Wei Wei is my dad's son. Is that true? Wei Wei was her dad's son. No wonder Wei Wei addressed her grandma as his paternal grandma. No wonder her grandma treated Wei Wei so well but never liked her. It was not that her grandma was muddle-headed and did not know how to differentiate between an outsider and her own family member. It was because Wei Wei was her grandma's biological grandson. Since she already had a grandson, why would she care about a granddaughter? Xiao Nan remained silent for a moment. This is just a suspicion. We don't have concrete evidence at the moment. It was only because Sister Zihua had caught them red-handed in bed that she was sure of the relationship between Wada and Wei Xiaomei. But they had no proof about Wei Wei's relationship to Wada yet. It was all still her own suspicions and guesses. Zihua smirked. Given their relationship, do we really still need a DNA test to tell us who Wei Wei's father is? Testing it would only prove once again just how blind she had been at that time to have gotten into such a huge argument with her family over a man like that, to have given up her passion for the military, and to have become the kind of woman she hated most just for a man like this. It was ridiculous. Of course we have to. Xiao Nan was serious. Sister Zihua, have you ever thought about how you are going to handle your relationship with Wada from now on? Are you really not going to get a divorce? A man like Wada is like money that has dropped into the toilet bowl. To others, it seems like a pity not to pick it up, but it's also disgusting to pick it up at the same time. But are you saying that you can't bear to give up that 100 yuan? A pity? Of course not. She could not wait to get rid of this 100 yuan. Chapter 1877, You won't believe me if I call you a fool. Sister Zihua, I know you're unwilling to take this lying down, but no matter how unwilling you are, you're not yet 50. If you decide not to get divorced in an act of defiance now, you'll recall the scene you witnessed today every time you see Wada in the future. Won't that be too difficult for you? Mom, get a divorce. I'll support you. If you really get a divorce, I'll follow you. Gigia did not really want to say anything now, but she had to say these words. Gigia, do you really think that I should get divorced too? If I really get divorced, you won't have a father. Zihua could choose not to listen to other people, but she had no choice but to listen to her daughter. Gigia laughed bitterly. Mom, how big of a difference could it be from now given the situation? All right, then, I'll get divorced. Zihua nearly chipped a tooth from grinding them together. She would have to face it eventually. Xiao Nan, what do you think I should do next? My mind is filled with. I can't consider many things rationally anymore. Test their DNAs and prove that Wei Wei is Wada's son. Then, find someone to investigate Wada's and Wei Xiaomei's situation back in the countryside. When you married him at that time, his military status should have shown that he was unmarried. I know that people in the countryside usually have the practice of holding wedding dinners but not applying for marriage certificates. But now that our country's laws are more comprehensive, even marriages that are done through wedding dinners without getting certificates are now legally recognized. He committed bigamy by hiding the truth of his marriage and denying his relationship with Wei Xiaomei to marry you. Just based on this alone, he'll be punished quite severely by the law. They had to prove that Wei Wei was indeed Wada's son. Because Wada was a soldier, cheating in his marriage was already something that Wada would be harshly punished for. But that was not enough. For Sister Zihua to completely rid herself of Wada, the key was proving Wei Wei's blood relation to Wada. Reality was different from her dream. In her dream, Sister Zihua had only been Wada's girlfriend. To put it bluntly, dating involved two people, but as long as one party was firm enough, a breakup was inevitable. However, marriage was much more complicated. If Sister Zihua wanted to get divorced but Weida refused to do so, it might take a long time before a divorce would become official. However, if they could prove that Wei Wei was Weida's son and that Weida had gotten together with another woman behind Sister Zihua's back during their marriage, it would be an entirely different case. If Sister Zihua were to propose a divorce, there was no way it would be rejected. All right. A DNA test. Zihua had been part of the military as well and was clear about the strict discipline required of soldiers. Thinking about Weida's sense of belonging and ambition in the military, Zihua's heart was filled with revenge and pleasure. He's still dreaming of becoming a regiment commander? After committing such immoral acts, I'll see if he can continue staying in the military. In reality, what Zihua was talking about was exactly what Weida, who was still lying in a hospital bed, was afraid of. Looking at his parents by his side, Weida's expression was pale. Where's Jia? Mom, Dad, hurry and get Zihua out of the police station before the Zai family gets here. We have to settle this amicably without blowing this up. Once you bail Zihua out, remember to lecture me in front of Zihua and beg for her forgiveness on my behalf. Why? Mother Wei screamed with a shrill voice. As a wife, she was bold enough to beat her husband up so badly. She deserves to go to jail. I hope that she spends the rest of her life in jail. Thankfully, times had changed. Otherwise, a wife like Zihua would definitely be beaten to death by her in-laws, and even then, it would have been justified. I think it's better if I go. Father Wei sighed. Your mom clearly can't think straight. Your mom cares deeply about you, but she doesn't know how to do it right. If we let your mom go, I'm afraid that the matter will only get more complicated. When that time comes, we won't even be able to clean up the mess. Ade, don't you think that you were wrong? How could you and Xiaomei? And you were even caught red-handed by Zihua. At the thought of this situation, Father Wei did not know whether to reprimand his son or to deal with Wei Xiaomei. Lust was truly dangerous. Xiaomei had grown up together with Ada and was not an attractive woman. He could not understand how Ada could have faulted in such a thing given his intelligence. Don't talk about it. Weida was frustrated too. Although such things had not happened often, he had never once been caught. Over time, Weida had gotten used to having such a married life, feeling that Wei Xiaomei's gentleness lifted his mood. He had never expected to be caught in the act by Zihua. If he had known about this earlier, he would never have touched even a strand of Wei Xiaomei's hair. Father Wei had to prepare for the worst. Ade, have you ever thought about what will happen if Zihua decides to get a divorce from you because she found out about you and Xiaomei? Zihua has already gone to the police station, and this is no small matter. Do you really think you will be able to hide this from the rest of the Zai family? Do you mean that Zihua has the right to beat Ada up? Even if the Zai family finds out about it, they should be the ones apologizing to us. Look at the kind of daughter they raised. Mother Wei said indignantly. This time, Weida was truly incensed. Mom, things have already reached such a stage. Can you stop adding fuel to the fire? If you continue being like this. Anyway, Dad, you'll deal with Zihua alone. Don't let my mom get involved. And Mom, remember not to say a word in front of Zihua and the Zai family unless you want to disown me. Weida did not have that air of superiority that Mother Wei did. Not only had he cheated on his wife but he had also been caught red-handed by his wife and daughter. No matter how one looked at it, he was definitely at fault. Zihua was not in the wrong even if she had hit him. If the Zai family found out about this, they would never let him off. As such, he had to hide it from them at all costs. Dad, my mom is an old fogey. I think it'll be good as long as she doesn't drag me down now. Dad, you're the only one I can rely on now. You have to help me convince Zihua not to take issue with this and not tell the Zai family about this incident. I promise that I'll never meet Wei Xiaomei again in the future. I'll admit my guilt and allow her to punish me in whatever way she deems fit. I'll listen to whatever she says. Ade, you hurt me with those words. Don't you know that I did everything for your sake? Mother Wei was sad. She had thought of her son wholeheartedly, but her son had said that she was less reliable than his father. Why was she unreliable? She was the most reliable person around. Father Wei could not help but smack the back of Mother Wei's head. You still don't admit that you're a fool. Chapter 1878, Critical Moment. So what if Zihua beat Weida up? Weida slept with another woman behind her back. If you were in her place, I guess you would have ripped the other party's skin out. Think about this from another perspective. If Zihua had found another man behind our son's back and we found out about it, would you think that our son would be in the wrong for beating Zihua up? Would we have to bow our heads to the Zai family just because Ada hit their daughter? Mother Wei was at a loss for words. Just like what Father Wei said, if Father Wei had gotten into a relationship with another woman, she would definitely deal with both that vixen and Father Wei. In fact, if Zihua were to start an affair, her son would not even have to do anything. She would volunteer to go to jail after killing Zihua herself. Dad, you have to help me convince Zihua. Weida rubbed his face, feeling that he was in the worst possible situation. If he had known that so many things would happen because of a New Year's visit, he would have just chosen to stay at home. At the very least, he would still have left a good impression on them. What could Father Wei say apart from agreeing to his son's request? I can't promise that I'll be able to do it, but you can rest assured that I'll try my best. I've never treated Zihua as badly as your mom has. I think she'll give me some face at the very least. Father Wei was thankful that he had never acted like his wife had and had never thrown his weight around as Zihua's father-in-law, even when his wife had acted spitefully toward Zihua. Compared to how spiteful his wife was, he believed that his image as a father-in-law was still rather good in Zihua's mind. Since that was so, Zihua would probably agree if he were to beg Zihua. But Father Wei had been too idealistic. Mother Wei's words were indeed nasty, and Father Wei had indeed never once acted like Mother Wei and had never bossed Zihua around as a father-in-law. However, even when Mother Wei had flared up and unreasonably scolded Zihua, Father Wei had simply stood on by the sidelines. He had never once stepped in to interfere, nor had he ever tried to keep Mother Wei in line. Sometimes, Father Wei's attitude of staying silent inevitably gave off the feeling that he approved of Mother Wei's actions. Even though Father Wei did not utter a word, in Zihua's heart, Father Wei was not much better than Mother Wei. In short, Father Wei was not a good father-in-law, and neither was Mother Wei a good mother-in-law. Weida had already made himself clear that if Mother Wei were to lose her temper and put all the blame on Zihua, angering Zihua, Mother Wei would lose Weida as her son. No matter how reluctant Mother Wei was, she had no choice but to listen to her son and husband at this point in time. It did not matter to her who her daughter-in-law was, but she only had one son. Seeing both her husband and son anxious over this matter and feeling that they needed to give in to Zihua and appease her, there was nothing Mother Wei could do. Of course, she had no choice but to obediently listen to the words of the two most important men in her life. As such, she retracted her claws and tried to tone down her anger. All right, whatever you guys say. When we meet Zihua later, I'll act pitiful and not utter a word. How's that? After calming down and thinking once again about what had happened today, Mother Wei finally felt a tinge of guilt. They had kept their son's relationship with Wei Xiaomei a secret from the Zai family all these years. If they really reached the stage of a divorce, Mother Wei knew that Zihua would be more than willing to do so, but not the Wei family. Once Weida got divorced from Zihua, she would no longer have a chief as her in-law. Without a wife like Zihua, there was no way her son was going to get promoted in the military. Her son had expressed his wishes of becoming a regiment commander. They needed the Zai family's help. For her son's future, this divorce could never happen. Ade, don't worry. I know what to do when we meet Zihua. If she dares to get angry at you and wants to get divorced, I'll convince her to change her mind even if that means I have to get on my knees to beg her. Sigh. The Wei family had to keep such a terrible daughter-in-law. It was truly their family's bad luck. Father Wei and Weida breathed a sigh of relief in unison, and Weida forced out a slight smile. Mom, it seems like you're finally thinking a little rationally. Mom, I will never get divorced from Zihua. My wife can only be Zihua alone. If I get divorced from Zihua, our family will have nothing. Dad, Mom, why don't you find Jiajia first? Zihua cares a lot about Jiajia. As long as Jiajia still wants me as her dad, Zihua won't destroy this family for Jiajia's sake. She might even help cover this matter up and not tell the Zai family about it. That was right. At this point in time, Jiajia would be his best bet. Jiajia was indeed his daughter. At such a critical moment, she could be such a great help to him. That's right. You and Zihua still have Jiajia. As long as Jiajia is around, Zihua will never get divorced. Father Wei's eyes twinkled, feeling that a guiding lamp had suddenly appeared to guide him through this bleak path. Wait a minute. Where's Jiajia? Dear, have you seen Jiajia? Had he not said that Jiajia had been together with Zihua and had witnessed that scene? Zihua had been taken in by the police, but where was Jiajia? Half a day had gone by before Father and Mother Wei finally remembered that Jiajia had been present. But when they finally thought of Jiajia, they realized that not a single person had any idea about where Jiajia was. They could not even be certain about whether Jiajia had followed Zihua to the police station, or whether she had followed them to the hospital out of concern for Weida. Weida's expression darkened. Dad, hurry and take a look to see if Jiajia is at home. Remember to bring Jiajia along when you beg for Zihua's forgiveness. Before that, you have to make sure that Jiajia is on my side. After you find Jiajia, call me. I'll convince her. I believe that Jiajia will listen to her dad. He had always known that Jiajia had always wanted him to care more about her and love her like he did Xiao Wei. As long as Jiajia stood on his side this once and helped him out, he promised that he would treat Jiajia as well as he treated Xiao Wei. Indeed, during such a critical moment, only his own flesh and blood was the most reliable. Even though Jiajia was only a daughter, she played a critical role. Chapter 1879, Did I Get Into Trouble? Okay, don't worry. I understand. Jiajia has been an obedient child all along. She will definitely stand on our side and understand us. Ada was willing to dote on Jiajia well in the future. After knowing this piece of news, Jiajia would definitely be happy and help them persuade Zihua. With Jiajia around, Zihua would become soft-hearted and agree to conceal today's matter. Father Wei always thought that Mother Wei was pretty stupid to have thought of everything from Weida's perspective alone and take everything for granted. The truth was they were a family, after all. He was no better compared to Mother Wei. He felt that Jiajia couldn't complain if Weida didn't care about her. When Weida was willing to give a little paternal love to Jiajia, even if such paternal love wasn't pure, Jiajia should feel grateful and accept readily, or rather, accept with gratitude. It was a pity that he had forgotten Jiajia was already in junior high school and was a young adult with independent thinking ability. All along, Jiajia knew in her heart how the Wei family had treated Zihua and herself. Moreover, Jiajia had personally seen Weida and Wei Xiaomei sleeping together on the same bed. One had to know how serious this blow was to a teenager. If not for Jiajia finding Qiaonan and receiving comfort and guidance from an acquaintance in time, nobody would have known what kind of side effects Jiajia would suffer from in the face of such agitation. Zihua and Jiajia had a tense relationship with the Wei family to begin with. Now that such a thing had happened, even if Jiajia had any bit of admiration for Weida, she no longer held any expectations of him. The Wei family didn't expect that not only did Zihua catch Weida and Wei Xiaomei together in bed, but she was even more certain that Wei Wei was Weida's son. Since Weida and Wei Xiaomei already had Wei Wei as a son, no matter who tried to persuade them, Zihua and Jiajia could no longer accept such a family anymore. Nobody in the Wei family knew about this situation. Father Wei and Mother Wei also couldn't figure out where Jiajia was. Under Weida's guidance, Father Wei and Mother Wei realized for the first time how useful Jiajia, this granddaughter, was to the Wei family. The old couple rushed back to the Wei family, but Jiajia wasn't around. Then, they went to the house Zihua bought, but Jiajia was still nowhere to be found. After failing to find their granddaughter at both places, Father Wei and Mother Wei were dumbfounded. Jiajia didn't live with them, and ever since they had Wei Wei, their grandson, Father Wei and Mother Wei didn't care for her. All along, Mother Wei's words weren't pleasant. Although Father Wei didn't say anything, his attitude toward Jiajia was the same as Mother Wei's. Jiajia was already in junior high school. However, they didn't know what kind of classmates or close friends Jiajia had in school. Father Wei had no choice but to call Weida. What was more embarrassing and helpless was that Weida didn't know anything at all either. Weida obviously had more excuses than Father Wei and Mother Wei. Dad, you know that I spent at least 364 days in the army in a year. It was already an exception that I could come home to celebrate the new year this year. How would I know what kind of close friends Jiajia has in school? On the contrary, both of you live in the same city as Jiajia and are considered to be living close to each other. Both of you really don't have any idea at all. Weida realized a shocking phenomenon for the first time. Everyone in the Wei family, including him, had neglected Jiajia too much. Nobody knew that the three of them knew about Wei Wei's true identity. As such, not only were they more concerned about Wei Wei, but they had also neglected Jiajia. This was definitely not a good sign. Nobody was a fool. Weida was more worried about Jiajia than Zihua. Jiajia was young and temperamental. He didn't know if she would bear any grudges toward the Wei family because of this situation. He managed to marry Zihua so easily back then because she was dissatisfied with the Zai family since she was young. It was his fault. He had neglected this situation. Thankfully, Jiajia wasn't an adult yet. Hopefully, he would still have the chance to redeem himself so that Jiajia wouldn't be like Zihua in that she had no gratitude to her family who had raised her up but only felt grievances and resentment. I don't know. Father Wei was dumbfounded. Jiajia was his granddaughter. How was it convenient for him to care so much about her? Ade, what should we do now that we can't find Jiajia? Do you think Jiajia would find Zihua directly? Or even the Zai family? If it was the former, Father Wei was not worried at all. As long as he promised Jiajia that they would get Zihua out of the police station and not pursue the matter of her hitting others, there was no reason Jiajia would be stubborn and unreasonable over this since she was still a child with a simple mindset. What Father Wei was afraid of was the latter. If Jiajia went to find the Zai family directly for help, Jiajia would really become a sinner that destroyed the Wei family and Weida, her birth father. Zihua must guarantee that she was willing to spare Weida and ignore this matter since it wasn't appropriate for the Zai family to know about this too early. One had to know that Zihua's attitude was the key. Even if the Zai family was dissatisfied with Weida, as long as Zihua was willing to forgive Weida and refuse to get a divorce, what can the Zai family do? It was similar to how the Zai family couldn't stop Zihua from marrying Weida back then. If Zihua wasn't willing to get a divorce, the Zai family could only stand aside. No. Jiajia should know what kind of impact it will have on me if she goes to find the Zai family. She isn't an insensible child. Dad, go with Mom to quickly find Jiajia. I think Jiajia was just frightened and thus found a place to hide. Remember to call me if anything comes up. I'll try harder on my end as well to see if I can contact Jiajia. Weida kept pinching his forehead, feeling irritated. Everything had happened at the same time, causing the matter to be so complicated and difficult to resolve. Where exactly did Jiajia, his daughter, go? Didn't she know that the family was in a mess and that they needed her to make Zihua reconcile with him? The Wei family was like headless flies. Wei Xiaomei, who was sitting in Weida's ward, looked at Weida uneasily. Brother, did I get into trouble? Chapter 1880, Self-Sacrifice. Ever since Zihua bought another house, she had always been living in it with Jiajia and rarely returned to the Wei family. She didn't expect Zihua to come running to the Wei family today. If she had known, she wouldn't have been so stupid to sacrifice Weida's and her son's future for a moment of joy. Ever since she became Weida's woman, she had only slept with him a few times. To her, it didn't make any difference, and she didn't have that kind of need. However, Wei Xiaomei was smart. She knew that she couldn't hold a man if she felt average about such matters. Before Zihua married over, Weida treated her more indifferently by the day. He never mentioned her when he occasionally contacted his family. However, ever since Weida married Zihua, there was once or twice that Weida treated her better and was more attentive to Wei Wei, their son. In addition, as Wei Xiaomei often accompanied Mother Wei to watch TV, she could gradually catch a little bit of Weida's attention. In order to safeguard herself more and let the Wei family pay more attention to her son. It's not a big issue to sleep more often with Weida since she was his wife to begin with. Furthermore, Wei Xiaomei always understood in her heart that Zihua would never have married Weida if she knew that she was once Weida's wife. It was Weida and the Wei family who had concealed her existence. However, reason and emotion were always kept separate. In Wei Xiaomei's eyes, it was all because of Zihua's appearance that caused her to be a culprit who had given birth to Wei Wei, a fatherless child. It was Zihua's appearance that caused the first half of her life to be so miserable and unbearable. As such, Wei Xiaomei always had the pleasure of taking revenge against Zihua when she slept with Weida in Zihua's house behind her back. So what if Zihua was the chief's daughter? She had slept with Zihua's man. Weida was willing to sleep with her instead of going home to accompany Zihua. This was sufficient to show that in Weida's heart, she was actually better than Zihua. Revenge was revenge. However, Wei Xiaomei never thought of letting Zihua know about her relationship with Weida, let alone seeing them together with her own eyes. Upon thinking of that scene, Wei Xiaomei still felt lingering fear, and her face turned pale. Under the psychological influence, the places where Zihua hit before ached even more. You're not the only one who got into trouble. Weida closed his eyes. At this moment, he didn't shirk his share of responsibility and push all the blame toward Wei Xiaomei. Although Weida didn't let Wei Xiaomei bear all responsibility, he still held a grudge against her. As such, he chose to close his eyes and not look at Wei Xiaomei. To be honest, Wei Xiaomei was not as pretty as Zihua. Zihua wasn't ugly. On the contrary, as she was a soldier previously, there was a special heroic charm to her. Furthermore, Zihua grew up in the Zai family. Her temperament that naturally formed due to family influence couldn't be compared to Wei Xiaomei's at all. Thus, Weida couldn't understand. Was his brain not working well, or was he blind previously? Why did he spend the rare time and energy he had on Wei Xiaomei instead of Zihua, coaxing her so that she became completely biased toward him? In reality, didn't he do a good job before marriage? It was precisely because he had coaxed Zihua well that he was the company commander now. Why was it that after marriage, when success was more easily attainable, he became confused and foolish, causing the relationship with Zihua to be so tense now? Brother, what should we do now? Will Sister Zihua get a divorce with you? Upon mentioning this, Wei Xiaomei's face turned paler. She was really worried that Zihua would divorce Weida. Wei Xiaomei understood more than anyone in the Wei family that everything the Wei family owned today was all thanks to Zihua. Zihua could let the Wei family lead a good life. Similarly, if the Wei family lost Zihua, they would lose everything and drop from heaven to hell, going back to their lives before. Upon thinking that her son was going to leave Pingcheng and return to the countryside to study in a school with poor teaching quality and a poor environment, and that he would either be a farmer or a manual laborer like the other children in the countryside in the future, Wei Xiaomei felt uncontrollable pain. No, her son must not lead such a life. Her son should enjoy the best in this world and have the brightest future, becoming an elite. Otherwise, what was her suffering in silence and enduring all the pain over the years for? Wei Xiaomei gritted her teeth so hard that they were about to be crushed. Brother, why don't we do this? Go and tell Sister Zihua that I was the shameless one who removed my clothes to seduce you and you were an unwilling party. I even drugged you so that you would have sex with me in an unconscious state. As such, you hate me to death now and would never want to see me again in this lifetime. Brother, send me back to the countryside. Let's not meet each other again in the future. Just treat Sister Zihua well in the future. Only if he coaxed Zihua could this matter be regarded as the past and her son's future would be secure. Wei De looked at Wei Xiaomei in surprise. Are you serious? If that was the case, as long as Zihua was willing to play a fool and believe his words, this matter could be resolved just like that. There was no other way. Of course I am. As long as you and Xiao Wei are well, I'm a willing party no matter what I have to do. Brother, after I'm gone, take good care of Xiao Wei. Wei De looked at Wei Xiaomei differently now. This was the first time he valued Wei Xiaomei's existence. A woman was willing to sacrifice herself for him to this extent. It was undeniable that Wei De's self-esteem as a male was greatly satisfied, and he was also moved by Wei Xiaomei's sacrifice. Don't worry. The rest don't know, but you should know. Xiao Wei is my only son, and I can only have Xiao Wei as a son. Jia is a daughter, and she will be married off sooner or later. Everything I have will definitely be inherited by Xiao Wei alone. You don't have to worry about this at all. He had never changed his mindset about this at all. Wei Xiaomei silently heaved a sigh of relief. Brother, quickly share this with Sister Zihua and send me away. What Wei Xiaomei didn't say was that it was nothing to be caught in the bed. It had been so many years and so many times. Zihua didn't catch them in the act all this while, but an accident like this happened this year. What Wei Xiaomei was afraid of was that the relationship between her son, Wei Wei, and Wei De would be discovered one day, just like the relationship between her and Wei De.